Well, this morning I'm going to start a little project on this 1988 Com-Pac 16. This is one I just pressure washed to try to clean it up a bit. But one of the main things I've got to do to this boat is pull off that mast hinge there, little mast tabernacle thing there, and repair that mast base. It's got some extreme cracks in the gel coat. I think what happened, the previous owner had the mast get away from him and yanked out the screws, and then it was put back with bolts, which is fine, except for they didn't use stainless. At least the washers are rusted. But anyway, there's a lot of gel coat cracking on the far side over there, and it hasn't caved in or sunk in or anything like that, but I do know that it is leaking because when it's raining, I can get inside the boat and there's a pretty steady drip coming through where something's not bedded properly. And I've got a suspicion that there's just a possibility that there's some rot starting in that plywood core underneath that. So I'm going to take off that little mast step there and pull those bolts out and just cut out the top of that area and just see what I've got. It may be perfectly fine, and if it is, that's all good. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that rainwater has gotten in there and might be starting to deteriorate that little plywood plug that's in there. It's just a compression plug. And anyway, I'm going to cut it out and see what I've got. The boat's on the trailer, so as I move around and work on different things, it's going to be jiggling the camera around. So sorry about that. Well, the first thing I've got to do is just take the bolts out, and there's one screw in there too. So that definitely had no bedding around it whatsoever, and it wasn't even screwed all the way down. And the bolts don't appear to be stainless either. They're just regular zinc plated bolts. So let's see what I can do to get those out. Somewhere around 81 or 82, 1981 and 82, somewhere in that area, they started using a foam, structural foam core on these boats, and it doesn't rot, it doesn't delaminate, anything, no problems with it whatsoever. But still, in some key areas, they still used plywood for compression, and one of the places they put plywood was right here on this little mast base area right here. There's a chunk of plywood in here, this set in resin, to give the compression through that deck down to that compression post that's inside. It's got a teak compression post inside, but it's got some really serious gel coat cracking here. Like the gel coat is completely lifted up here in a place or two. So it kind of looks like the mast got yanked down at some point in time. And quite often with the screws from the factory, what will happen is you'll get water infiltration around those screws and start rotting out that core right around the screws. And then you go to raise the mast one day, and all of a sudden the base of the mast kicks out and the screws yank out because the core around those screws had gotten, a little bit rotten or dirty. And all of a sudden that pressure from trying to stand the mast up, pushing it that way, just rolls the screws out. And then, you don't necessarily drop the mast, but it just, yanks the screws out, which is why I personally like to through bolt them. I know a lot of people don't through bolt them, don't like to through bolt them, but I do. I've seen more of these masts fall because of those screws ripping out than anything else. So, and they're real short screws from the factory, they're not very long, which was sufficient, adequate, completely good, safe, as long as you don't ever get any water around them. But, sooner or later, everything on the boat has to be revetted, and people just don't do it. The previous owner put a metal plate underneath on the inside, kind of as a backer, and had a hard time getting the bolt to come out through it. Hey, Bennett. Hey, Lucas.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, these are just zinc-plated bolts, and that bolt was bent. I guess that's why I couldn't get it out. Zinc-plated and starting to rust. Yeah, these bolts were not even bedded around them at all, and you can see they're starting to rust bad, and evidence that water was getting around them. So, and you can see how that's spinning there. It's not bedded at all. There's nothing under it, no bedding under it, and it's pretty good evidence already, just that quick, that there's a little bit of rotting going on in that plywood core. Fortunately, it hasn't sunk down, so I'm hoping that I can just cut it around that shoulder right there. I do have one gel coat crack that goes around the corner here that I'll have to cut out, a little bit of this one. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Also, this is a bit bent up. Now I can straighten that out, and it's structurally it's fine to straighten that out and reuse it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do have a spare one here somewhere that I can also use. But no more than this is bent. You can straighten that out. You don't even have to put heat on it. All you need is a backer block and bump it out and straighten it out, and it's perfectly fine. If it was bent like a really hard bend, like this 90-degree bend at the bottom, then it can get, work fatigue bending it back and forth. But that little bit there, that's nothing to be concerned about. That can be straightened out. So, but I'll take that to the shop, straighten that out. Now that screw was stainless, but it wasn't run in all the way. Now this is the screw that would have went in from the factory. This typically would have been going in under this, And what it does is anchors the top of the compression post in there, and then that would have been, you know, sealed, and then this would have been put over it, and then you would have just had the four screws, and this one would have been hidden underneath. It's kind of typically how it's done anyway. This one, I think maybe they forgot to put the screw in until after the fact or something. I don't know. Anyway, that screw was, they drilled a hole through this plate, and you can still see where there's still burrs on it where they didn't deburr it, and ran that screw in to catch the top of that compression post. But they hit their metal backing plate that's on the inside, and that's where they stopped. That's why that was sticking out about a ½ inch or so, because it went through all this core and hit that backer plate and never went into the compression post. I could actually take the compression post and with some effort, I could move it around because it wasn't anchored. So, so I know all this has been off, you know, obviously before, and an attempt was made to kind of fix it, but I'm getting the camera up here closer. It's a bit of a mess, and I will most definitely be cutting it out and most likely re-coring it, I'm sure. To give you a little bit more of a close-up here, what's going on. You know, this was there like that, and that's what's underneath it, and you can see all the really heavy cracks through the gel coat. And this is a structural crack here. This is well beyond just a little stress crack in the gel coat. This is, you know, this is like traumatic crack here where the mast was yanked out or whatever, and lifted that whole thing there. This is, I can put my fingernail underneath that, and it's you know, down into the fiberglass below it. And you can see right here there's some wood fibers, and that's, you know, where they drilled the hole through. Yeah, but that just tells me that it's probably got a little bit of rot going on in there. That's where I pulled the bolt out, and it's, you know, wood fibers coming out with it. You can see there. So pretty sure that it's at least rotten around the bolts, so I'm gonna cut it out. And you can see here where that the old caulking is here. That's where that screw right there was in from the factory, and set in caulking to support or to capture the top of that compression post so it wouldn't move around. And then this was put on top of that, and that screw was hidden. So when they put the screw back in, they missed that original hole and put it over here, and then they hit that metal plate anyway, so it never actually went into the compression post. But all this is lifted here too, so it's all indications are that this was yanked out for, you know, like I say, probably original screws had gotten soft around them, and it got yanked out. Now the mast that came with this boat is a good mast. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no bends in it or kinks in it or anything. It's perfectly fine. So I don't know that it was replaced. I think it just yanked out. All right, so I'm going to get out my multi-tool here, and I'm gonna just cut out a section to start with to see. I'm not gonna cut way back here unless it's rotten way back here, but I am gonna cut it probably right here across, and see what I got. So this trailer is wiggling back and forth a bit. The boat's moving back and forth on the trailer a good bit, so it's so maybe some motion in the camera. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this thing around. This thing is really loud. They run run better when you plug them in. I gotta go plug in my drop cord. I'm just starting out a little at a time until I see what I got. Let me get me a dust mask here. You can see that had cracked all the way through, not just the gel coat, it was cracked all the way through. And now you can see the plywood core here. And while it's not completely rotten, it had gotten soft around the holes. So I just about guarantee you that's what happened, is it got rotten enough right around the screws to where the screws yanked out. But so this crack goes completely through, not just the gel coat, but all the way through the laminate, all the way down to the plywood. So there's no doubt that it was leaking. No wonder it was leaking water. You see where it's just cracked all the pieces there. So I guarantee you that rainwater had been getting around those screws. So this chunk right here is completely loose, so it's got to come out. Now this plywood core is not very thick. If memory serves me, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Seems like it might be 3/8 inch or something like that. It's not real thick. But because of that crack right there, I'm going to at least have to cut it back to here. But now I want to try to start being a little bit more particular with it. Crack down into here, so not much to do but bring it all the way back to there. Okay, so that got me just past the edge of the plywood right there. You can see the edge of the plywood right there. So that's a good thing. So I'll probably need to do the same thing on the other side since I've got a crack running into there. Now that appears to be fir plywood, which is a good choice for something like this. It's very strong and very rot resistant, and fairly inexpensive for around here at least. But you can see where the moisture had run back to here at least, but most of it is concentrated right around these bolt holes, right in that area right there. But I may come back and drill a hole in these two corners to get me a rounded corner and come back a little further. We'll see how it goes. But I do seem to be on the edge of the plywood on these two sides here. I want to be very careful not to cut too deep because I do not want to have to repair that interior. Now I'm just using a screwdriver with a bent tip on it here, just using it like a chisel. It is a lot cooler today here than it's been for the last month. We had a good, probably a 3-hour rain yesterday. Much needed rain. That's the first rain we've had in about a month. And it cooled things off. And then this morning we've got a really nice, strong breeze. And it's a bit cloudy, a bit overcast. It's keeping the temperatures down a good bit, which is nice. But like I say, I'm going to be going really slow with this because I don't want to mess up the interior, that headliner on the inside, which is all part of this same structure. They're like sandwiched together. It's while yes, it is starting to rot here, it's still amazingly sound. It had not started to deteriorate to the point where it was sinking in at all, but it had, had started rotting. So, and it had definitely separated from this top laminate, and as you saw, the top laminate was cracking everywhere, so needed to come out. Well, there's what all came out.